The Pokemon Adventures Yellow manga begins with an old woman standing before the ruins of Silphco, quietly admiring the wreckage. Using her cane, she shifts through the debris, and she smirks as she uncovers the Pokemon Badge Energy Amplifier. It's been 2 years since the battle at Team Rocket's HQ. Meanwhile, in Northern Pallet-town, a mailman riding a ponytail loses control as it bolts towards someone resting nearby. The person is Red. In true aura farming fashion, he quickly sends out Soar, who catches the mailman and calms Ponyta. Red explains that Pallet-town's clean air can overexcite Pokemon and helps the mailman gather his scattered letters. Red spots one from the Pokemon League addressed to him. Elsewhere, Bruno is doing some intense training against Sinonix until Lorelei appears. She mockingly praises his efforts, revealing she sent a challenge letter to Red under his name on Lance's request. 1 month later, Professor Oak and Misty chat via video call. Misty is surprised Red hasn't returned since receiving his challenge. Oak isn't worried though, stating Red constantly gets challenges now that he's champion, and no ordinary trainer can stand up to him. He's more annoyed with the fact that Red still hasn't finished the Pokédex. Their talk is cut short when electrical buzzing can be heard from the door. Anticipating Red and Pika, Oak opens the door with rubber gloves, revealing a battered and injured Pika. Pika stumbles into the lab alone, while Oak rushes over as he collapses. If this doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. The opening reintroduces Red as a skilled champion who deeply understands Pokemon, shown by how quickly he calms Ponyta. Then the story takes a shocking turn as Red mysteriously disappears, leaving Pika to return severely injured. Seeing Pika in such a critical condition makes you wonder how badly things went for Red, and makes you wonder just how powerful this new threat might be. And it gets you immediately intrigued to see how this story unfolds. In the outskirts of Pallet-town, a boy in a straw hat— wait, Luffy? A boy riding a Doduo asks the local kids if they've seen a Pikachu, showing them a sketch. At Professor Oak's lab, he holds Pika, urgently asking what happened to Red and the others. Misty reminds him of Pika's condition, so Oak quickly places him into the healing machine. Looking at Red's letter from a trainer named Bruno, they assume Red was defeated, something neither of them can fully believe. Oak decides to contact the other gym leaders for help. Suddenly, the Doduo trainer bursts into the lab. Oak nervously asks them to leave, but the trainer lights up when they spot Pika. Releasing him from the machine, Pika immediately perks up in his arms. Oak is surprised as Pika clearly knows him. He questions the boy's connection to Red and how he knew Pika was here, but gets no real answer. They both begin to leave until Oak stops them, questioning his intentions. The trainer stays secretive, but clarifies he intends to rescue Red. Skeptical, Oak sends out Spearow. He states that Red is the current champion and was defeated. How could this trainer hope to overcome someone like that? He challenges the trainer to prove himself by ending the battle. The trainer sends in Doduo, and uses clever defensive tactics by making it use Whirlwind and run around in circles to dizzy Spearow. Pika then catches it safely. Impressed by his control and compassion, Oak leads the trainer to Red's house, and trusting Pika's bond, gives him Red's Pokédex to carry on his journey. As they leave, Oak quietly wonders if Pika actually got healed by the trainer's touch, or if it was just his imagination. This chapter does a great job at introducing the new mysterious protagonist. I love how it parallels the second chapter of the previous saga, with the protagonist earning Professor Oak's approval and even receiving a Pokédex to start their journey. What makes this chapter unique is how the boy proves himself differently. Instead of defeating Spearow like Red would've, he takes a gentler, more compassionate approach, ending the conflict without battling. This highlights his kind nature, while also hinting at a possible lack of battle skills. His character, combined with Pika's familiarity, convinces Oak, yet the boy's mystery remains intriguing. In Viridian Forest, the boy sits by a river to fish. Letting Pika wander, he feels a tug on the line and reels in a Sea King. It escapes as the boy casually shrugs. It's what he gets for skipping the battle. Meanwhile, Bill walks through the forest, almost at Viridian City. He hasn't been here since Red went to the Indigo Plateau. Spotting a Weezing and Sandslash confirms his suspicions. Team Rocket's past experiments still have an effect on the forest's ecosystem. He jots notes for his thesis, but freezes when he sees Pikachu's silhouette dart past him. Giving chase, he slips and falls into a river, weighed down by his bag. Man, what are you carrying in there, bricks? Pika rushes back to the boy and signals for help. The boy quietly kneels, closing his eyes, and places his hand in front of Pika's face. After a moment, he grabs his rod and heads off, finding Bill sinking fast. He throws a rope and pulls Bill towards the shore. Before they can rest, a whirlpool forms. An angry Seadra appears and attacks. The boy tells Pika to use Thunder Wave, but it doesn't work. Pika runs along the rope to use Thunder Shock instead, but Seadra goes wild and snaps the rope. The boy, thinking fast, focuses and casts his fishing rod. The Pokeball at the end flies and perfectly catches Seadra. Bill is stunned. The boy simply yawns, telling Bill to thank Pika, and goes to heal Seadra, smiling while holding the Pokeball, confusing Bill. Even more questions have been raised about this mysterious boy. While this chapter hinted at his powers, this one definitely confirms that he has some sort of healing ability and possibly the ability to sense Pika's feelings or thoughts. It's unclear but interesting, making you wonder how these abilities will develop. It was also great to see Bill again, caught in Pokemon trouble as usual. With his return, we now have someone else connected to Red, which could eventually lead us to find out what happened to him. At Professor Oak's lab, Misty's shocked to hear that he gave Red's Pokédex and Pika to a complete stranger. Even more surprising, Oak seems completely fine with it. He reassures her and hands a message to Blue's Pidgeot, who flies off. Meanwhile, high above Viridian Forest, Lorelai watches Bill's group below, quietly noting the presence of Pika. As Bill drives off, he notices the boy is already asleep. Confused, he receives a friendly shock from Pika, making him really wonder if this really is Red's Pikachu. Examining the fishing rod, Bill is surprised. The line didn't resist the current like it should have, yet the rod is completely ordinary. He's even more shocked to see that the Seadra is completely healed. Before he can ask questions, a voice is heard demanding for Pika. Bill turns to see a woman atop a cliff. She releases her Dugong, who attacks with Aurora Beam. The boy wakes up as Bill demands answers. The woman reveals Red lost to Elite Four Bruno, and Pika was the only survivor. She introduces herself as Lorelai of the Elite Four, and declares she's taking Pika. Dugong charges down an icy slide, but the boy's Doduo breaks it, giving them a chance to hide. Inside a cave, the boy confirms Red's defeat and heals Pika with a hug. Bill is shaken. How can a group powerful enough to beat the champion be stopped? Outside, a drill begins to pierce the cave, while an old woman watches gleefully through her laptop. The mystery surrounding this trainer only continues to grow. Much like how I addressed in the previous chapter, Bill too questions some of the strangeness about this kid. I also like how he has his suspicions about Red's Pika, only for them to be confirmed by Lorelai herself. The fact that she's after Pika all but confirms that Red was defeated, but there's still so many unanswered questions about that incident. One thing's for sure though, the Elite Four are ruthless, and they seem very persistent on getting Pika. Trapped in a cave, Bill barely dodges a powerful spike cannon from Lorelai, who has found their location. The attack seems unusually strong, prompting the boy to have Pika enter a Pokeball tied to his fishing rod. He sends Pika back out to spy on Lorelai. Pika observes Dugong and Cloyster working together to attack with massive ice spikes, but Lorelai notices and nearly catches Pika before it's reeled back in just in time. Back in the cave, the boy reveals to Bill that he can actually read Pokemon's thoughts. Outside, Lorelai sees another Pokeball roll from the cave again, and has her Pokemon destroy it, only to realize it was a decoy. Doduo bursts from the cave, carrying everyone, and the boy orders Thundershock that disrupts Cloyster's combo by breaking its main horn. Lorelai demands to know how they knew her strategy, but the group retreats. Riding away, Bill wonders why the boy avoided doing major damage. As Lorelai chases, the boy finally gives his name, Amarillo del Bosque Verde, Yellow of the Viridian Forest. Elsewhere, a familiar girl listens into the conversation. She's annoyed that Yellow broke his secrecy. Lorelai catches up to the group by creating an icy path with Dugong. They jump in the water to escape, but Cloyster freezes a big wave, trapping the group. Just as Lorelai is about to end things, Yellow's Rattata breaks the ice with Hyper Fang, and they escape downriver, thanks to an assist from a mysterious girl on her horsey. At the Indigo Plateau, Lorelai reports to the old lady. With Yellow's powers now known, the Elite Four sisters sights not just on Pika, but on Yellow himself. This wraps up the intro of the story with a strong finish. We finally get a glimpse into how Yellow's powers work, which is exciting. Unlike Red, Yellow lacks skill, but makes up for it with his unique abilities. What's really interesting though is that the Elite Four seem to know more about his powers, hinting at bigger things to come. I also like the tease of Green's involvement in Yellow's journey. It actually starts to make more sense given how clever and crafty she can be. It really makes you wonder what her plan is for finding Red. After escaping Lorelai, Yellow parts ways with Bill and heads towards Celadon City, where Erica teaches at Celadon University. After class, a professor praises Erica's popularity, but notices she seems worried. Erica admits she's concerned about a close friend who's gone missing. Later, she contacts Misty, who tells her that there's still no news about Red. We then get a glimpse of Red's battle with Bruno. His Pokemon are unconscious, and Red gets hit hard by a Hitmonlee, before falling off a cliff. Pika wakes up. He was dreaming of Red's defeat. Pika tries to leave in search of Red because of this. Yellow stops him, warning him not to rush off, but Pika lashes out in frustration. Yellow tries calming him down, sensing his distress, but Pika remains angry. Just then Erica arrives with a group of Celadon citizens. She explains Professor Oak told her about Yellow, and while Oak trusts him, Pika clearly doesn't. Erika believes Pika only followed Yellow because of his lingering sense of Viridian Forest, and says she's come to take Pika into her care. Before anything else can happen though, an attendant announces that someone matching Red's description was seen nearby. Pika and Yellow rush to investigate, with Erika following. At the city's west side, Red appears. Pika joyfully leaps into his arms. Erika's relieved, only for Red to punch her and knock her down. Yellow senses something is wrong. Pika attacks, but the fake Red reveals his insulated bodysuit and fake Red scent. Removing his disguise, he introduces himself as a super nerd. As Erika lies under his foot, the super nerd then makes Marowak attack to scatter the crowd. Yellow demands he return Pika, declaring himself as Pika's rightful partner in Red's absence. This is such a great setup for an arc focused on Yellow and Pika's bond. The Red flashback adds weight, showing why Pika is desperate to find his trainer. But rushing in headfirst isn't always wise, as shown when they fall for the super nerd's trap. What makes this moment work so well is that it reinforces the truth. Red isn't here, and because of that, it gives Yellow the chance to step up, prove himself, and earn Pika's respect. It's a clever subversion that sets the stage for real growth between them. In a barren location, Blue stands silently as his Pidgeot returns with a message. Thanking his partner, Blue opens the letter and quietly reads the message from Professor Oak. Meanwhile, back in Celadon City, the super nerd mocks Yellow's demand to return Pika, daring him to take the Pokemon back by force. He orders a combined assault from his Marowak, Persian, and Paris. As Yellow struggles to defend himself, the super nerd escapes deeper into the city. Erika tries to rise, but Yellow is already preparing to chase him. She seems disappointed to see Yellow is only using a Rattata and Doduo. Yellow calmly explains that he releases all of his Pokemon that he's caught. He doesn't want to complete the Pokedex, he just wants real friends. He rides off on Doduo, and Erika instructs her elite group to follow. On the ground, she finds Yellow's sketchbook, flipping through pages filled with drawings of Yellow's traveling companions, including Pika, who he hopes to befriend. In the city, the super nerd gloats in the shadows, thrilled about the reward from the old woman who ordered Pika's capture. He plans to experiment on Pika and get revenge on Celadon University for expelling him. As Yellow searches carefully in the dark, Marowak attacks with Boomerang, while Persian disrupts with Screech and Paris weakens Yellow's team with Spore. With Yellow receiving a barrage of attacks, Pika becomes concerned. Back with Erika, she realizes the super nerd must have found Red to replicate his scent. Instead of calling Professor Oak, she suggests contacting Blaine, the fourth good gym leader and former Team Rocket scientist. This chapter really highlights how outmatched Yellow is in terms of strength. Without Pika, he has to rely on his own team, and they just aren't enough. The super nerd strategy is nearly flawless, making everything feel even more hopeless. But throughout the struggle, we're starting to see the slow buildup of Red's allies coming together, which feels like the beginning of a much needed turning point. Pika desperately releases bursts of electricity in an attempt to escape, but the super nerd explains that he and his Pokemon are fully insulated from electric attacks, and reminds Pika that Yellow isn't even his trainer. With no way out and Pika pinned down, Yellow makes a bold decision. Recalling Ratty the Rattata and Dodie the Doduo, he takes Marowak's Boomerang straight to the chest, sacrificing himself. The super nerd mocks him, until Ratty's and Dodie's Pokeballs swing back into the scene, tied to the bone using Yellow's fishing line. The added weight knocks the bone right into the nerd's face. The impact frees both Pika and the Pokemon, and the three quickly escape. Before the super nerd can regroup, he finds himself surrounded by Brock and Misty, who are alerted by Erika. Unbothered at first, the nerd suddenly panics when Blaine arrives. Misty calls out the nerd's dirty tactics, as he unleashes poison powder with Paris, but suddenly he's struck. Chunks of concrete fly at him from all directions. Blaine realizes Pika's electricity created a magnetic field, drawing in the steel reinforced debris that Ratty and Dodie had knocked loose. The super nerd is defeated. Blaine praises Yellow's courage and bond with Pika, who now fully accepts him as a friend. Erika places Yellow's sketchbook beside him as the gym leaders reflect on his connection to Pika. Blaine uses this chance to apologize to Misty for his past mistakes, back when he experimented on her Gyarados, and she forgives him. That was a really nice moment to add. Using Growlithe to track Red's scent, they discover traces of Moonbeam, which leads to Mount Moon. Suddenly though, the nerd's body eerily rises, surrounded by swirling gas. This was a pretty intense cliffhanger, but before that, we gotta talk about how awesome Yellow was. He shows his greatest strength, a deep bond with Pokemon. As shown earlier, Yellow only keeps Pokemon that he truly considers friends, and that trust makes all the difference. It's what allowed him to outsmart the super nerd. Even while unconscious, he trusted Pika to follow through, and that trust was earned through everything that he's done for Pika so far. So when Pika finally chooses to stay with Yellow, it feels completely rewarded, and it was a great payoff for their growing bond. As the gym leaders watch the super nerd being lifted into the swirling fog, the creepy old lady grins from atop a nearby building. Brock sends out Graveler and Misty sends out Ammonite, both trying to pull the nerd back down. The fog reveals itself to be a Ghastly, and Blink quickly commands Fire Blast with his Growlithe, but Erica spots a wild Caterpie directly in the blast's path. Despite his injuries, Yellow uses his fishing rod to send Pika in and rescue the Caterpie just in time. The gym leaders are impressed by Yellow's selflessness. As Yellow regains his footing, they formally introduce themselves. Though Erica remains troubled, why would someone try to abduct the nerd after he failed? They suspect his employer wanted to silence the only lead to Red's location. Before they can act, Ghastly reappears and engulfs them in a thick fog, only to be suddenly struck by a powerful headshot attack. Blue and his Charizard arrive, revealing he's been investigating Red's disappearance. He confirms Ghastly's attack style matches Agatha, the Elite Four's Ghost-type specialist, confirming their involvement. Blue warns Yellow that while saving Caterpie was noble, it gave Ghastly the chance to strike again. Misty protests, but Blue insists that Red would have been able to save Caterpie and defeat the threat at the same time. He tells Yellow he must grow stronger if he wants to save Red. This inspires Yellow to ask Blue to train him, which he agrees. Before they leave, Brock and Misty give Yellow their Graveler and Ammonite for protection. As Yellow and Blue fly off on Charizard, the Caterpie he saved quietly watches them leave. This chapter really helps Yellow understand what it'll take to reach his goal. The Elite Four feel far more threatening than Team Rocket, and without Blue, things would have gone bad really fast. I also love how Red remains a looming presence. His absence is felt, as it emphasizes how far ahead he is, especially compared to Yellow. But that gap gives Yellow something to strive for. Training with Red's rival and receiving a Pokemon from Red's friends highlights the bond he's formed through his journey. Little by little, Yellow will be getting closer to him, not just in strength, but by connecting with those he's impacted. Blue begins telling Yellow what happened 2 years ago while Red was battling Giovanni. At the time, Blue was headed to the Indigo League, but ran into something unexpected, a fearsome trainer. While surfing on his Golduck, Blue was suddenly attacked by a wild Lapras. Golduck responds with Tail Whip to lower Lapras' defense, but Lapras uses Mist to hide itself and sneak in close. It lunged at Blue, but Golduck lifted him with Hydro Pump just in time. Golduck then landed a powerful Hyper Beam, knocking Lapras out. Blue tosses the Pokeball and successfully catches it. Pleased to add a new Pokemon to his team, Blue was caught off guard when a young boy angrily confronts him, claiming he'd been tracking that Lapras for days. Blue dismisses him as Lapras had no trainer. The boy tries to reclaim the ball, but Blue tells him to train harder before attempting to catch a Pokemon. The boy begs for his help, however. Later, at a Pokemon Center, Professor Oak confirms the boy's story. There have been sightings of shadows at the power plant. The boy had been tracking Lapras to get into the power plant, where his haunter had gone missing. Oak encourages Blue to help, saying he still needs to train anyways. Though he had no reason to return after Team Rocket caught Zapdos, Blue agrees to go to the power plant. The boy was thrilled to be traveling with Blue, but Blue clarifies he would only watch. The boy has a retrieve haunter himself. Surprised but motivated, the boy rushes ahead. Unbeknownst to them, an old woman observes silently from the shadows of the power plant. Focusing entirely on Blue's flashback was a cool choice that added great context to the last saga. Watching him catch Lapras so effortlessly really shows how cool and skilled he is. What's clever is how the setup makes you think that the Elite Four member he's about to face is Lorelei, especially when there's a Lapras involved, but the reveal of Agatha instead made the Lapras battle a fun twist that plays with our expectations in a smart way. Also, it's just really neat to see the power plant since it's a location that we haven't visited yet in the manga. Blue and the boy walk through the dark corridors of the power plant when suddenly a swarm of Magneton and Magnemite appear. The boy freezes in fear, but Blue tells him bluntly that he'll never be a real trainer if he doesn't learn to fight back. Blue sends out Machamp, who strikes at Magneton with Low Kick, knocking loose one of its screws. But the group retaliates. Magnemite and Magneton blast Machamp with Sonic Boom. Machamp uses Focus Energy. As Magneton charges in, Machamp targets the spot where the screw was knocked loose, landing a critical hit. The Magneton falls and is defeated, leading to the remaining Magnemite to scatter. Blue offers to take the boy home, but the boy refuses. He's still determined to get his Haunter back. Blue respects his decision and wonders why a Haunter would be drawn to the power plant. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the halls, and a strange gas fills the air. A shadowy woman appears, recognizing Blue's Pokédex and suspects he's one of Professor Oak's trainers. The boy confirms Blue's identity as Oak's grandson, but Blue quickly hushes him for speaking so casually. The woman smirks, saying she has a debt to settle with Professor Oak, and now his grandson will do. She sends out Gengar, who launches a Nightshade. Blue blocks it with Golduck's Hydro Pump. Gengar then uses Hypnosis. Blue is lifted into the air and loses consciousness. In his dreams, Blue finds himself reliving memories with his former master. he realizes this isn't a nightmare, it's a Dream Eater attack. While Gengar drains Blue's energy, the boy watches helplessly, blaming himself for the situation and wondering what he can do to save him. This chapter continues Blue's flashback in a compelling way, blending both action and lore. The power plant setting adds a tense, eerie atmosphere that hints at a deeper mystery. Blue's earlier battle with Magneton reminds us again how skilled he is, and I like how he's becoming a pseudo-mentor to this kid, foreshadowing his future role with Yellow. Agatha's sudden arrival though instantly raises the stakes, especially with the reveal of her grudge against Professor Oak. It's a great inclusion that makes things personal. Now the real battle begins, and the big question is, what exactly is Agatha after? The mysterious woman calls this facility a monument of selfishness, built by humans without care for the Pokemon it displaced. Though abandoned, it became a haven for ghost types, like her Ghastly and Gengar. The boy accuses her of stealing his Haunter, but Agatha explains that Haunter came willingly, drawn by the ghostly energy here. She then reveals her identity as Agatha of the Elite Four. Meanwhile, Gengar continues to drain Blue's energy with Dream Eater. Trapped in a dream, Blue recalls training with his old master. He believes strength came from his Pokemon, but his master taught him that true strength comes when a trainer sharpens their own spirit. Only then can they connect with their Pokemon fully. He hands Blue a sword, symbolizing that strength. Blue wakes up and communicates with the boy through the Pokedex, thanks to Golduck's psychic powers. He tells the boy to sneak behind Agatha, retrieve his Haunter, and attack, just enough to distract Gengar. Agatha notices the plan and orders Confuse Ray. Though scared, the boy pushes forward. Agatha uses Arbok and Golbat to strike the boy. He still sends out Haunter though, who lands a hit on Gengar, freeing Blue. Agatha mocks Blue, saying ghost types can't be struck physically, even with a sword. But Blue recalls his master's words and orders Scyther to strike with belief, not just force. Scyther slash lands, defeating Ghastly and Gengar. That should be illegal. That can't happen, but whatever, it's the manga. As Agatha vanishes, Blue thanks the boy, gives him Lapras, and walks away. This, he says to Yellow, was his first true battle with the Elite Four. What really stood out this chapter was how it fleshed out both Blue and Agatha. Agatha's motivations became clear, as she reveals how the power plant's creation harmed Pokemon, hinting at her belief that humans and Pokemon shouldn't coexist, literally the opposite of Yellow's approach. As for Blue, the Dream Eater sequence was a smart way to dive into his past, tying back to the training mentioned at the very beginning of Red's journey. It's great to see how those lessons come full circle, especially as he passes them on as a mentor now. The next volume begins with Yellow and Pika waking up and they begin looking for Blue, who had promised to train Yellow. Yellow finally spots him, just as a huge boulder falls towards him. Yellow tries to warn him, but Blue calmly sends out Scyther, who slices the boulder. Now that's what I call aura. Then Blue orders Charizard to push another boulder down, surprising Yellow with how intense his training is. Yellow asks Blue to train him, but Blue ignores him. As Yellow waits, he hears rustling in a bush, and finds Caterpie, the same one Pika saved in Celadon. Blue suggests Yellow try catching it, and explains Caterpie can become strong if trained well. Yellow sends out Ratty to battle, but Blue quietly wonders if Yellow has what it takes to raise a strong team. The next day, Blue finds Yellow and Ratty exhausted. He still hasn't caught Caterpie. Yellow admits he didn't want to hurt Caterpie and prefers a peaceful way of catching Pokemon, except for when battles are truly needed. Blue finds this frustrating and begins to teach Yellow. Thanks to Blue's help, Yellow eventually catches Caterpie. Blue asks how he caught Ratty and Doduo. Yellow says that Ratty was caught with help and Doduo was actually given to him. Suddenly, Ratty begins to glow. It's evolving. Yellow, who's unsure about evolution, is overwhelmed as Ratty becomes Raticate and begins to cry. Blue is annoyed but explains that evolution can be cancelled by using the Pokedex. This is such a cool reference to cancelling evolutions in game. He tells Yellow to decide if he really wants to be a trainer, especially with the Elite Four ahead. Meanwhile, on Cerise Island, Agatha opens the center of the badge amplifier, revealing a hidden 8th slot for the Earth badge. She shares this information with the leader of the Elite Four, Lance. Despite the ominous ending, this chapter was actually pretty lighthearted and funny, offering a much needed break from the heavy Elite Four drama. Watching the too cool for school Blue deal with Yellow's inexperience was hilarious, like Yellow spending all day and failing to catch Caterpie. But underneath the humor, we see an important side of Yellow's character, his gentle nature and dislike for hurting Pokemon. We've seen hints before, but here it's made very clear. Is this kindness a strength or a weakness for Yellow though? I guess that's something we'll continue to explore as the story goes on. Yellow names his new Caterpie Kitty, and asks Pika to watch it while he runs a quick errand. As soon as Yellow takes off, Kitty notices a leaf floating by and starts chasing it. The leaf drifts towards the edge of a cliff, and Pika quickly follows, trying to stop Kitty from falling. Just in time, Pika catches up, but the leaf keeps going. Kitty runs after it again and nearly crashes into a cactus. Pika jumps in front of Kitty, protecting it, and blows the leaf away. With Kitty now feeling hungry, Pika finds a different leaf to feed it, but soon after eating it, Kitty begins to feel sick. Suddenly, a Pidgeotto swoops in and yoinks Kitty. Pika climbs up a cliff as fast as it can and leaps into the air and shocks the Pidgeotto, forcing it to drop Kitty. Pika catches Kitty mid-fall, and they land safely near a tree covered in flowers. Kitty eats some of the buds and quickly starts to feel better. Later, when Yellow returns, his arms are full of vermilion flowers, Caterpie's favorite food. He stops and smiles though, seeing Kitty peacefully sleeping beside Pika with a flower on Kitty's head. That was really wholesome. Sure, some might call this... and it kinda was, but it worked because it was short, quick, and visual, making it an entertaining little side story. Plus, it helped strengthen the friendship between Pika and Kitty the Caterpie. It kinda reminds me of how Ash's Pikachu would watch over Misty's Togepi. Sweet, hilarious, and heartwarming all at once. A week passes since Yellow's training with Blue, and he praises Dodie and Ratty for their strength. Blue agrees they've grown, but is disappointed that Yellow still refuses to evolve the rest of his Pokemon. Yellow sends out Almanite and Graveler to train. However, he desperately struggles to command them. Blue thinks these Pokemon could be strong allies if Yellow learns to control them. Meanwhile, Blaine examines the Super Nerd's bodysuit. He confirms its insulated tech is known to be used by Team Rocket, and he recalls Red's old gloves, which carries Red's scent and fooled Pika. Blaine places his hopes on Brock, who's heading into Mount Moon in search of Red. Back to Yellow, he follows Blue's advice and studies Red's Pokedex. He notices Eevee, not knowing Red had caught one. While this is happening, Blue is sensing the ground's erosion, noting how it's familiar, and wonders if these were the effects of the abandoned power plant. Suddenly, a group of hungry Mankey and Primeapes surround them. Blue sends Golduck and Pidgeot to push through, while Yellow fights with Pika and Ratty. Blue tells Yellow to lure away the leader, Primeape. Dodie pecks it and runs. When it's far enough, Yellow opens the Pokedex, releasing Blue's Porygon. This is such a cool use of Porygon's ability to travel digitally. Using Tri-Attack, Porygon defeats Primeape, causing the rest to flee. Blue praises Yellow's thinking, but is surprised to see him healing Primeape. Even in chaos, Yellow chooses kindness. Yellow thanks Blue and decides to travel alone as to not become over-dependent on him. Blue points him to a passenger boat to cross the seas since his Pokemon can't surf. They part ways, and Blue sends another letter to Professor Oak with Pidgeot. The chapter ends with Lorelei observing Bruno training his Hitmonlee. I like that we finally get to see the results of Blue's training pay off. Sure, Yellow still has some growing pains, but his battle against Primeape was the exact real-world experience he needed. The moment where he struggled with Brock and Misty's Pokemon was pretty funny too. I saw it as a nice nod to Pokemon disobeying trainers without enough badges. Ultimately, Yellow deciding to continue alone shows real maturity. Now he gets the chance to apply everything he's learned and discover just how far he can go as a trainer. Yellow travels aboard the SSN, hoping to meet Red and team up with him someday. Meanwhile, the Pokemon Fan Club president watches a movie about the Indigo League and gets excited. He has his Rapidash and Fearow use Payday on each other, proud they learned the move usually used by Meowth. He collects the coins and rushes aboard the SSN. Inside the ship, 3 men plant explosives in the engine room. After giving a confusion command, they leave. The ship begins to sink from the sabotage, and people panic. The fan club president refuses to believe the ship is going down and decides to get to the bottom of this. Yellow enters the engine room and sees the explosives and signs of a psychic attack. The president also arrives and mistakenly thinks that Yellow caused the damage. He orders Rapidash and Fearow to attack by using Payday. Yellow tries to explain, but the president won't listen until he starts to fall and is saved by Pika. As water begins to flood the room, Yellow sends out Omni the Ammonite to use Ice Beam to freeze the hole. Yellow tells Pika that they must help the passengers. The president actually recognizes Pika as Red's Pokemon. They rush to the deck as the ship sinks further. There, 3 Team Rocket grunts appear. They say that even though they lost at Silph Co 2 years ago, they've rebuilt. Each grunt represents a former admin, Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, and Koga, with their own squads. Yellow, who's angry, sends out his Pokemon to fight, while the grunts retaliate with their own. In the games, Team Rocket resurfaces in Gold and Silver after Red defeats them, so it's interesting to see the manga tackle this while still in Generation 1. I like the explanation of Team Rocket's elite trio, and since they appeared in the previous arc, it makes sense that they are the ones that kick off the organization's revival. The big question now is their motive behind sinking the ship. Are they after something, or are they just causing chaos? Either way, it's a perfect chance to see how Yellow handles a villainous threat that's serious, yet not quite on the Elite Four's level. Yellow stands ready to face the Team Rocket Elite Trio, but before the battle begins, 4 of his Pokemon scatter, and are blocked by enemy Pokemon. Voltorb and Electrode use Swift, easily outpacing Yellow's Doduo. Doty's able to land a whirlwind, however, to let the rest of the team escape. Slowpoke attempts to sink the SSN by hitting it with confusion. All passengers are thrown into the ocean, while the Team Rocket trio rises into the air thanks to Hypno. Suddenly, threads wrap around the passengers. It's Kitty using String Shot. The threads act as lifesavers, helping everyone float. Yellow tells everyone to begin to swim back to Vermilion City. Team Rocket prepares for a counterattack though, but Omni freezes their legs with Ice Beam. Hypno is commanded to attack, but this causes the trio to fall into the sea. They resurface and strike back. Ekans and Weezing use Acid and Sludge, knocking Yellow off the ship. Gravy the Graveler catches him though, and Pika strikes back with a powerful Thunder Shock. Ratty then chews through the SSN, like a beast, to split it into two. Gravy holds both halves of the ship, balancing Yellow on top. With the threat of a giant ship looming above them, the Team Rocket Elite trio has no choice but to surrender. Back at Vermilion Harbor, the president has his Pokemon use Payday on them and happily collects the coins. He asks Yellow about Red, but Yellow admits that he still doesn't know where he is. The president then begins to share what he knows about Red, but first wants Yellow to learn about the legend of Vermilion Harbor. Meeting another character from Red's past feels like it'll be crucial, but before diving into potential leads, this chapter does an awesome job at highlighting Yellow's progress. Team Rocket severely underestimating Yellow worked totally in his favor, especially given his scrappy little team. I love seeing how each Pokemon utilized their strength perfectly. Everyone had a clear role to play, showing just how deeply Yellow understands his Pokemon. Also, it seems like Team Rocket's plan was to kill people on the boat just cuz, which was really messed up. The president begins to tell Yellow about evolution stones. Usually they disappear after being used, but legend says that there are 4 special stones that don't vanish. These permanent stones are believed to be under Vermilion Harbor. Yellow asks what this has to do with Red. The president, who's annoyed, says that Red once came into this very harbor to stop Team Rocket. He was thrown overboard, but Poliwhirl saved him and evolved into Poliwrath, proof that the stones might be real. Yellow's excited and decides to search for the stones, hoping they'll lead him to Red. How he came up with that conclusion, I'll never know. The president warns that the stones are heavily guarded, but Yellow goes anyways. Later, Yellow fishes using Omni as bait and Kitty as string, but worries about the number of Tentacool around. A sudden disturbance pulls Kitty, and Yellow sees a Tentacruel. Tentacruel wraps Yellow and pulls him underwater, showing that one Tentacruel is trapped under a rock. Yellow sends Gravy to help, even though he's a rock type, so I guess he's just dead now. Gravy moves the boulder, but Yellow starts to drown. Before passing out, he tries to return Gravy, but fails. Yellow later wakes up and sees Tentacool saved. He then spots the Leaf Stone, but no other stones. Amazed by the underwater beauty, he returns to the surface. He tells the president, who's angry that the other 3 stones were taken. Yellow questions what kind of Pokemon would need a Fire, Water, and Thunder Stone, but then remembers that Red has an Eevee, and wonders if he was the one who took them. Meanwhile, the president tries to get the Leaf Stone, but Tentacruel sends him blasting off. This chapter adds some nice context to Red's original visit to Vermilion City. I like the idea of evolutionary stones that don't vanish, and Yellow experiencing the underwater dome was a great payoff for his kindness towards Tentacool. It's especially funny since the selfish president failed at the same thing. My only real criticism is that Yellow's motivation to investigate the stones felt a bit forced. Although there's a hint that Red might have used them on his Eevee, Yellow deciding to check them out just because Red interacted with them 2 years ago isn't really relevant to the current situation. Green flies through the air using her Jigglypuff, remembering Yellow's battle with Lorelei. She wants to sneak into Bill's cottage since Bill was also involved in that fight. The house is locked, but Green uses Diddy the Ditto, I'm just gonna call it Ditto, to turn into a key and unlock the door. She quietly sneaks past Bill and starts using his computer to access his files. Bill wakes up and sees her, thinking a thief broke in. Green realizes the data is complicated and decides she needs Bill's help. Bill sends out Vulpix to stop her, but Green calls out Blasty to scare them. She ties up Bill and Vulpix, warning that the Elite Four are planning something big, and Bill might be their next target. Green reveals that she placed a bug in Yellow's straw hat, One Piece reference, to track his journey. She also admits that she sent Yellow on this mission to find Red, and used her horsey to stop Lorelei from chasing them. Green explains that the Elite Four are her enemies too. After the Indigo League, the Dex holders went their separate ways, with Red going off to train, Blue preparing for a rematch against Red someday, and Green began looking for the person who used a bird Pokemon to kidnap her as a child. She thinks the Elite Four were behind it. Green wants access to Red's data in exchange for protecting Bill. At first, Bill refuses, but Green begs him, saying it's for peace. Bill agrees. He checks Red's data and finds Eevee was taken out recently, most likely to replace Pika. But before more can be read, a Hitmonlee smashes the system. Green grabs Bill and they flee on Blastoise. Bill asks where Yellow is, and Green says he's still in Vermilion City. Getting a Green-focused chapter was a great way to gain insight into the current situation. As suspected, Green's been the real mastermind behind Yellow's mission, and using Bill's data to trace Red's Pokemon history was a clever move. This perfectly ties into Yellow's discoveries about the evolutionary stones, confirming that Red really is using his Eevee. There are still some big questions, like why did Green choose Yellow, or what exactly the Elite Four's goals are, but it's exciting to finally have solid hints that Red might be out there somewhere. Yellow is stuck at Vermilion Harbor. The SS Anne is destroyed, and he has no water Pokemon that he can surf on. He says he'll catch one tomorrow. For now, he trains with Pika as he's unable to sleep. Pika practices Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, Flash, and Substitute, and Yellow is happy with the work they've done. Suddenly, he hears someone crying for help. A trainer and his Slowpoke are caught in a big wave. The wave crashes into Pika, removing the Substitute. Yellow sees the trainer has a broken leg, and uses Kitty's String Shot to make a cast. The swimmer thanks Yellow for saving him, and Yellow asks why he's out so late. The swimmer says that he was training for a surfing contest, but got injured now because of the wave. He can't compete. Yellow actually learns that the winner of the contest will get a Dragonair that knows surf. Grateful for his help, the swimmer lends Yellow his Slowpoke to enter the contest. Meanwhile, Green and Bill continue their chase of Hitmonlee. Green warns that they don't have much time left before Blasty tires out. Hitmonlee uses his stretchy limbs to block them, knocking them back. Blasty prepares to battle it. Green thinks Hitmonlee's trainer may be nearby, but if she shouts a command, they'll give away their position. Bill says that Blasty is waiting, so Green uses a device to send the command in a bubble. Back in Vermilion, Yellow enters the surfing contest. As Dragonair begins demonstrating its surfing, it suddenly creates a whirlpool, attacking everyone. Yellow is pulled in and sees a man riding the Dragonair. Things are getting serious now, as the mysterious Elite Four leader finally makes his appearance. Considering the chapter opens with Yellow training with Pika and carefully studying its attacks, something tells me that this knowledge will be crucial in the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, it's great to see that we're still following Green's intense showdown with Bruno. Clearly, the Elite Four are making some major moves again, setting the stage perfectly for an exciting confrontation ahead. Dragonair attacks the surfing trainers, creating huge waves that knocks everyone off. The announcer sees a man riding the Dragonair, but the man refuses to say his name. He watches the chaos and then commands Dragonair to use Hyper Beam, blowing a crater in Vermilion City. I'm sorry, did people just die? The man calls for someone to come out, but when no one does, he surfs away. Yellow returns the borrowed Slowpoke to the swimmer and sends out Dodie to chase after the man. The swimmer warns Yellow doesn't have a Pokemon that can surf, but Yellow says it's his duty to stop the attacker. Meanwhile, Blasty is weak after using all of his water to fly, so Green keeps sending attack commands using bubbles. Hitmonlee pops one of the bubbles and grabs Blasty, but Blasty uses Bubble to hide the real command bubble. It reaches him, and he uses his water cannon to defeat Hitmonlee. Green is happy that their special moves work, but she knows it was just a distraction. She tells Bill that Yellow is in danger. Dodie continues to chase after the man, but they start to fall behind. Kitty ties a string to Pika, and Dodie launches Pika towards Dragonair. Pika pulls Yellow close, and the man gets angry and questions Yellow. Yellow asks why he attacked the city. The man says that the city was empty, so there was nothing to worry about, though there might have been a few trainers that were there. He says Pokemon and humans cannot live together. Only elite trainers should exist. He then traps Yellow and introduces himself as Lance of the Elite Four. Now this is terrifying. The Elite Four have truly raised the stakes with the massive damage that Lance inflicted. Actually nuking a city and killing characters is wild. It adds genuine weight and danger to the conflict, making the Elite Four feel like a truly serious and villainous threat, very different from their portrayal in the games. Also, a quick shout out to Green for being clever with the bubble strategy. I love seeing her resourcefulness in action once again. But sadly, as she points out, that was just a distraction. Their true goal was Yellow, and it seems he's fallen right into their trap. Yellow is wrapped by Dragonair, and notices that they're floating in the sky. Lance explains that Dragonair can fly through the air and swim in the sea. His power to control dragons is a gift. As Dragonair summons a storm, Lance says that the Elite Four and their chosen trainers are what the world needs. Pika tries to attack, but Dragonair fires a Hyper Beam, knocking Pika away. Lance sees a scar on Pika's ear and realizes Lorelei and Agatha were after this Pikachu and its trainer. Dragonair wraps Pika, and Lance plans to deliver it to both Lorelei and Agatha. Yellow sees an opening though, making Pika use Substitute, which hits Lance. Angry, Lance orders Dragon Rage, launching Yellow into the sea. As Yellow sinks, he fears that Lance will try to destroy more cities. He sees the Pika Substitute repelling water, and understands the trick. Lance begins to surf away, but is shocked to see that Yellow is riding the water. Pika used Substitute to make a surfboard. Pika attacks with Thunderbolt, causing a huge explosion. Lance is seemingly gone, but his words stay with Yellow. He wonders if Pokemon really would be happier without humans. Then he remembers what Red once said: if you care for Pokemon with a kind and gentle heart, they'll always be your friends. Yellow truly believes it now, and tells Pika to keep surfing. As they move forward, bubbles float behind them, hinting at Lance's survival. Meanwhile, Professor Oak receives a letter from Blue. He's found the Elite Four's HQ at Cerise Island and is headed there now. This was such a great payoff to Yellow's training with Pika. Using Pika's Substitute as a surfboard was genius, a clever twist on the surfing Pikachu idea, letting Yellow navigate through the water perfectly. The best part was the Substitute foreshadowing 2 chapters ago, with the Substitute deflecting water, which is totally missable, but became a great setup for this epic moment. I also like how we finally got clearer confirmation of the Elite Four's hardcore goal. Basically, genocide, or destroying mankind to protect Pokemon. Pretty intense stuff, and I'm loving how high the stakes are now. Yellow and Pika see a Farfetch'd fall into the water. Pika uses Surf, and Yellow pulls it out. He notices the Pokemon's wing is hurt, so he uses his healing powers to help it recover. Farfetch'd explains that it couldn't find its nest, and that the forest itself attacked it. Yellow heads into the forest, and they quickly realize that it's strange. Farfetch'd says that the layout shifts every time someone walks through it. To stay safe, Yellow has Kitty use String Shot, tying the thread to a tree so that they don't lose their way. As Yellow, Pika, and Farfetch'd walk, they see the same thread again. Yellow is shocked. They've been going in circles. Suddenly, a fruit flies towards them, but Pika zaps it with Thunderbolt. Yellow sees the trees moving. He jumps on Dodie and rides away. Looking closer, he realizes the moving forests are actually Executor and Oddish. Yellow calls Professor Oak, and he explains the situation. Oak says it's not breeding season, so something big must be happening to upset the Pokemon. At Cerise Island, Agatha and Lorelei watch Lance train, and he says he soon plans to attack Yellow. Back in the forest, Farfetch'd decides to build a new nest, and thanks Yellow. Still, Yellow wonders what kind of power could disturb the wild Pokemon like this. At the lab, Oak's granddaughter, Daisy, is revealed to be helping Professor Oak. She sees Yellow's photo. Oak calls him a child who can heal Pokemon, and maybe the only one who can stand against the Elite Four. I like how this seemingly simple and unrelated side quest actually hints at something major coming soon. It's great because it's such a funny little story, with the Executor creating a moving forest to confuse Yellow and Farfetch'd, and ultimately they get their happy ending. But beneath the humor, the conflict here is directly tied to the Elite Four's activities. It's really cool seeing how their actions, or at least their intentions, continue to ripple through the world around Yellow. Yellow and Pika surf toward an island. Yellow looks up at the volcano and wonders if it's still active. Nearby, a junior trainer assures him that Cinnabar Volcano is not active, and Yellow realizes this is where Blaine lives. Yellow thinks Blaine must have already explored this island, so he's unsure where to go next. The junior trainer is collecting rocks as part of his training. He points to an old man who told him to do it. The man says to give it his best shot, so the trainer's Haunter throws rocks at him. Suddenly, a Pokemon holding a spoon blocks the attack. Haunter tries again, but Arcanine uses Ember, turning the rocks into fireballs. Yellow thinks the old man will be hit or fall, but instead, the old man deflects the fireballs with ease. Yellow notices the spoon-wielding Pokemon. The old man praises the trainer and gives him a gift. Yellow recognizes his voice, however. The old man invites Yellow to come with him. At the volcano, he opens a secret lab. Inside, the old man puts on glasses, removes a fake wig, puts on a fake mustache, and reveals he's Blaine. He explains that the disguise helps protect him since his mustache was burned in an accident. Blaine calls Brock for an update. Brock says he saw signs of Red at Mount Moon, surprising both Blaine and Yellow. Brock explains that Red was there, but has since disappeared. He also reports finding a strange ice mold in the exact shape of Red. This was a shocking twist. We finally got our next big lead on Red. But before we dive into that, let's quickly focus on this chapter, because it was pretty solid. I love the inclusion of the junior trainer, especially since he's the same kid with Haunter from Blue's flashback. That's some great world building. Blaine training with Mewtwo was also really cool. Clearly, he's taken Red's advice to heart, trying to bond rather than treat Mewtwo like a threat. Blaine holds Yellow back as he cries out for Red, who seems to have broken free from the ice. They look closer and notices Red's back looks torn, like something broke out of it, like a cocoon. He recalls something similar happening to Red back during the Silphco battle, and believes someone might have helped him, but he isn't sure who. Suddenly, someone starts hacking into their call. Blaine panics, thinking they've been found, but it's just Misty. Misty tells them armies of wild Pokemon are attacking major cities. Pewter City's under attack, while her own city, Cerulean, and Erica Celadon City have already fallen. Blaine tries to warn Brock, but Misty's call cuts off. Brock races into Pewter with Geodude, determined to protect his city from the army of Machop. In Cerulean, Misty is surrounded by Gengar after her Staryu fails to protect her. Meanwhile, in Celadon, Erica battles an invasion of Shellder and Cloyster. She tells her people to capture, not harm the attackers, and wonders who's behind it. Based on the Pokemon's types, she guesses the Elite Four are behind this. Back in the lab, Blaine reaches the same conclusion and tells Yellow about the island where the Elite Four are hiding. As they leave, Blaine collapses and tells Yellow that they'll meet at the island. He hands Yellow the map, and as he leaves, Blaine decides to take his Master Ball. Blaine eventually arrives at Cerise Island and spots a shadow, thinking it's Yellow, but it's actually Blue and his Golduck. Suddenly, they hear voices. Blaine thinks it's the Elite Four, but to his surprise, it's Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, and Koga. What a cliffhanger. The final showdown is really coming into view now, with lots of pieces falling into place, and the return of the Team Rocket gym leaders adds an exciting new layer. The Elite Four's decision to attack the good gym leaders is strategic, taking their strongest opponents off the board. While we still don't know how exactly they plan to achieve their ultimate goal, it's clear they're stepping up their plans. With all these characters slowly coming together, it definitely feels like we're building up to a huge confrontation. My one concern going into this though, is that I don't really feel like Yellow's ready, but let's just see how this plays out. The third volume continues with Professor Oak freaking out. He's learned that Cerulean, Pewter, and Celadon cities are under attack. Misty commands Goldeen to use Waterfall and Supersonic against Gengar, but they keep getting up. Misty worries. Daisy asks what happened to the boy traveling with Pika, and Oak explains that Yellow went to Cerise Island, where the Elite Four are gathering. With 3 armies attacking the mainland, Oak realizes that the group must be headed to the island while the Elite Four's defenses are down. At Cerise Island, Blue and Blaine are shocked to see that Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, and Koga are alive. Sabrina says that they'll explain later, but they have guests now. Deeper in the cave, Lorelai and Agatha tell Lance intruders have arrived. Lance ignores them, asking for Bruno. Lorelai says that he went to Mount Moon to settle his battle with Red. At Mount Moon, Bruno reflects on his battle against Red, and we then flash back to the day of their battle. Red arrives, responding to his letter of challenge and thinks it's a prank, until Bruno's Onix attacks. He was merely testing Red, and properly introduces himself. Using his nunchucks, he sends out Hitmonlee, but Red counters with Pika. Bruno's impressed with Red's reflexes, and has Hitmonlee use High Jump Kick. Pika aims Thunder Wave at its knees, but Bruno says Hitmonlee's joints are too hard to find. Hitmonlee lands a hit. Red enjoys this, admitting he hasn't felt this way since facing Blue. Bruno spins his nunchucks, and Red begins analyzing his actions. Bruno tosses the nunchucks, sending out Hitmonchan. Red uses Polly, who lands a double slap, but then gets hit by Fire Punch and Thunder Punch, knocking it down. And the terrible Polly luck continues, I see. Red counters with Gara, as Bruno calls Onix. Meanwhile, Agatha and Lorelai watch from a distance. We're finally seeing the battle between Red and Bruno, and it's really exciting. The fact that Bruno is looking for Red to finish their fight implies that something didn't go his way, which raises some interesting questions. The highlight of this chapter was definitely seeing Red back in action. He truly proves himself as a top tier trainer, with sharp reflexes, impressive skills, and smart battle analysis, like noticing how Bruno's nunchucks help him release his Pokemon closer to his opponents. This genuinely feels like a showdown between 2 elite level trainers, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. The next chapter begins taking a look at Lorelai's past, where her seal got sick from breathing in pollution. Agatha appears and has her Ghastly absorb the pollution, since Ghastly was born from it. Lorelai was thankful, but Agatha hated the new power plant. She asks Lorelai to join her, as they both dislike how humans mistreat nature. Back in the present, or the current flashback, Gara uses Hydro Pump, but Onix dodges. Red hopes a strong water move could end the fight, but Bruno's Onix wraps around Gyarados. Gara bites back, but Onix escapes underground. Red recalls Gara and sends out Soar. Soar uses its vines to catch Onix when it pops out again. Bruno is impressed, but says that true strength is needed to hold back Onix. Suddenly, Onix attacks from behind with its tail, hitting Red and Soar. They fall into one of Onix's tunnels. Red realizes Onix created a whole network of tunnels for surprise attacks. Just as Onix prepares to strike, Bruno stops him. A group of Diglett pass by, using the tunnels as their home. Bruno explains that Diglett live here, and when they become the trio, they help the plants grow. It's a balance between Pokemon and nature. Just as the battle's about to continue, Bruno is suddenly hurt by something. Watching from afar, Agatha and Lorelei smile. They believe humans will always ruin nature. Lorelei says that if Onyx disappears, Diglett, plants, and even more would suffer too. They want only elite trainers to remain and create a paradise for Pokémon. Agatha shows Red the badge amplifier that once fused the legendary birds. Together, they demand to know where Giovanni's Earth badge is, as Red was the last person to see Giovanni. So the truth behind the Elite Four's plans with Red is finally revealed. Targeting Giovanni through Red is wild, but luring him out with a battle was actually a smart move. What's even more interesting is that Bruno might not even be fully on board with this plan, despite how it first appeared. His battle with Red being interrupted, and his thoughtful observation of Onyx and Diglett coexisting suggests a genuine respect for Pokemon that Red acknowledged. This adds complexity to the Elite Four's intentions. Maybe not all of them are as villainous as they seemed at first glance. Red realizes Lorelei and Agatha are using Bruno like a puppet. Knowing he can't win in this cramped tunnel, Red tries to lure them out. He flies off on Arrow, but Lorelei sends out Jinx to trap him. Lorelei demands to know where Giovanni and the Earth badge are, but Red doesn't know as he passed out after their battle. Lorelei believes him, then makes one more request. She wants Red to join the Elite Four. She admits they've been watching him since he won the Indigo League. Red realizes that the challenge letter was just a trick, which makes Lorelei even more impressed. Red refuses and sends out Gara, Snore, and Soar. Bruno attacks with Hitmonlee, Lorelei uses Jinx, and Agatha calls out Ghastly. The three Pokemon form a triangle and unleash a powerful combo attack, wiping out Red and his team. Lorelei says it's a shame that Red didn't join them. She creates an ice doll of Red, placing marks on its limbs, which freezes Red in those exact spots. Agatha then covers the area in mist, and they leave Bruno to finish Red. Red begs Bruno to stop, but Bruno won't listen. Red sends out Pika to fight, but Lorelei marks Pika too. Red receives a brutal blow, and falls off the edge of the cliff, barely hanging on. The ice continues to spread, and Red tells Pika to escape. Pika can escape the mist if he uses his tail like a radar. He urges Pika to find some place warm to melt off the ice, and then find Professor Oak. While his body continues to freeze, he wonders if a trainer out there could actually sense Pika's thoughts and understand what happened. Then he freezes completely, solid as ice. Pika wakes up. It was a dream. Yellow, who can sense Pika's feelings, asks what's wrong. Just then, Green arrives, flying on her Jigglypuff. And that finally answers the mystery of what happened to Red. His battle against the Elite Four was brutal, clearly showing how dire things got for him and Pika. Now it makes total sense as to why they fear Yellow seeing Pika's memories. He'd uncover their true intentions, especially involving the badge energy amplifier. Though it's a tragic defeat, we know that Red somehow escaped the ice, which leaves the big question, where is he now, and when will he reappear? Only time will tell. Green and Bill jump down from Jiggly right in front of Yellow. They're also here at Cerise Island to take on the Elite Four. Because it's a bit cold, apparently, Green puts on a jacket. Trust me, this is going to be an important detail later on. Yellow and Green catch up, while Bill guesses that Green really was the one who sent Yellow on his journey, and also helped him back when Lorelei attacked. Green confirms both. She tells them to hop on Jiggly again, and has her horsey cover them in smokescreen to stay hidden. While flying above Cerise Island, they spot Slowbro wandering the area, guarding against intruders. Green explains that the Slowbro is what's making the island so cold. Yellow pulls out the map of Cerise Island, but he can't read it. When Bill reaches for it, the map slips out of Yellow's hand and falls into the ground, right in front of a Slowbro. All three of them silently hope that Slowbro ignores it, but instead, it eats the map. Then it starts walking towards its trainer to report. Thankfully, Green's horsey quietly latches onto the spike of its shell, and begins releasing a trail of ink for them to follow. Meanwhile, in Celadon City, Erica continues to fight against Lorelei's ice types. Misty and Cerulean and Brock and Pewter are still fighting ghost and fighting type Pokemon from Agatha and Bruno's armies. But even worse, a huge army of flying and dragon Pokemon is now headed towards the mainland. Back on Cerise Island, Green notices Cleffy shaking in its Pokeball. Yellow senses it hears familiar voices, and then they see them. Lieutenant Surge, Koga, and Sabrina, along with Blue and Blaine. Now this is an interesting alliance that's starting to form. The fact that Green's Clefable wasn't afraid definitely hints that the bad gym leaders might be joining the good side this time, which is an intriguing twist. Speaking of Clefable, it was awesome seeing the teamwork used here. Green's deep understanding of Yellow's ability made this possible, and throughout the chapter she was clever, strategic, and resourceful. Moments like these really highlight why Green is not only an awesome ally, but also an awesome character. Bill, Green, and Yellow are shocked to see Team Rocket's elite trio with Blue and Blaine. Sabrina, Lieutenant Surge, and Koga announced that they want to defeat the Elite Four. They admit before Silph collapsed, they slipped out, but now the Elite Four are attacking the area they want to control. They propose to work together on defeating the Elite Four. Blaine thinks despite their ethics, these three can be valuable fighters. Blue claims that he came here to defeat Agatha for her grudge against his grandfather, so he doesn't really care what the rest do as long as they don't get in his way. Sabrina then has Alakazam give everyone a spoon of destiny. Since none of the Elite Four have left Cerise Island, they will go in groups of 2 to take on each of the members. They focus their will on the spoon, which will decide who will be paired with who. The spoon decides that yellow goes with Blaine, Koga with blue, and green with Sabrina. For blue and green, they're paired with the exact foe they faced at Silph, which is pretty cool. Bill does not want to fight though, so his spoon doesn't bend. Lieutenant Surge thinks that his partner should have been red, but since he's not here, he takes Bill with him instead. Koga reports that they need to separate from each other to take on the Elite Four. And as they travel, Blue tells Koga that he has something to give him. It's his Golbat, and Koga appreciates the gesture. This was a neat moment symbolizing the trust Blue has in this alliance. This chapter cleverly flips the group's dynamic on its head, forcing Blue and Green to team up with their enemies from the previous saga, perfectly setting up interesting team-ups for the upcoming battles. Surge and Bill are the only odd pairing here since they don't have history, but I like the subtle implication that Red would have filled Bill's spot if he was around. Could this be hinting at Red's eventual return? We'll have to wait and see. Koga uses Golbat Supersonic to track down the Elite Four. He spots a shadowy figure and throws a shuriken, but it vanishes. Then an Arbok appears. Blue quickly realizes this must be Agatha. He tries to attack, but Koga stops him. The shuriken is actually a Pokeball that sends out Koga's own Arbok. Wait, that thing's alive? If you recall, that Arbok looked very, dead. Agatha's Arbok uses Leer, but Koga counters with Golbat's Haze to cancel the effects. Koga taunts Agatha to reveal herself, but she says they're too young to ruin the Elite Four's plans. Suddenly, Rock Slide is used. Being inside a cave, the falling stalactites hit Golbat. Blue rushes in and saves Golbat from being hit again, but gets licked by Gengar. The lick move paralyzes Blue. More rocks fall from the Rock Slide, hitting Blue and making him drop his medicine. The rocks form a wall, splitting Blue and Koga apart. Unable to see, Blue recalls Golduck and uses Golbat Supersonic to guide him. But he hears a different supersonic sound. It's another Golbat, which suddenly attacks him. Meanwhile, Koga faces Agatha, who says a gym leader is no match for her. Koga notices something strange. Agatha's Arbok has a different pattern on its body. She explains that the pattern changes based on the region, giving Arbok special new abilities. Arbok quickly wraps around Koga. Agatha uses her finger to change Arbok's pattern again to increase its attack power. Though Koga is trapped, he starts to figure out a way to counter the pattern changes. This was an awesome kickoff to the Elite Four showdown. As we've seen before, Agatha doesn't mess around, and she really does have Blue and Koga on the ropes. I love how this chapter cleverly turns Agatha's endgame limitations, having to rely heavily on poison types due to Gen 1's limited ghost types, into a storytelling advantage. Here she uses similar Pokemon to Koga, so we get a direct comparison to show how much stronger an Elite Four member truly is compared to a gym leader. It highlights their terrifying power and raises the stakes further. Agatha continues her attack. Koga's Arbok tries to use Glare, but Agatha's Arbok hits back with a body slam and bites off Arbok's tail. Man, this poor Arbok cannot catch a break. Koga then sends out Weezing and Muck to use Smog and Poison Gas, but Agatha's Arbok changes its pattern again, making it resistant to the attacks and easily defeats both Pokemon. Meanwhile, Blue is still blinded and gets hit by Agatha's Golbat. He knows he needs his sight back and thinks of contacting Koga. Koga sees Blue in trouble and throws a set of shurikens. Agatha and Arbok dodge them, confused by what he's doing. She tells him to give up, but Koga shows that his Arbok's tail has grown back. He explains that his Arbok can regenerate as long as his head remains, which explains how it was able to survive against Blue. So basically, Arbok is Piccolo. Agatha warns that she'll change Arbok's patterns again and find a way to win. Golbat suddenly returns and Agatha is shocked. It's actually Koga's Golbat and not hers. Blue appears with his vision restored. He thanks Koga, revealing that the shuriken he threw carried an Ekans holding a paralyzed heal, which cured him. Koga goes to end the battle. He has his Golbat use Leech Life on himself, surprising Blue. But Koga has his blood sprayed on Arbok, stopping it from changing patterns. Enraged, Agatha orders Arbok to bind Koga. Before it can land the final hit though, Blue's Golbat uses Confusion, knocking both Agatha and Arbok out. Koga thanks Blue for his help, noting Agatha was plotting a surprise last poison sting to finish them off. Blue says they're even now, and the two lead to continue through Cerise Island. This was a solid victory showcasing the strength of teamwork and the new alliance. Agatha's arrogance clearly caused her to underestimate her opponents, creating the perfect opening. Koga especially shines here, demonstrating exactly what separates his Pokemon from hers, and cleverly pinpoints Arbok's weakness. My only gripe is that Blue didn't really do much, Koga really stole the spotlight, and Agatha barely used any of her actual ghost types. Still, something tells me we haven't seen the last of her yet. We now focus on Green and Sabrina. They spot the marsh badge floating on an icy pillar. A voice warns them not to question why it's there. Before they can react, their hands are frozen together by ice. Green and Sabrina try to break free, but the ice won't budge. Lorelei appears, riding her Cloyster, and mocks them. Lorelei proudly talks about her ice dolls, made by Jinx's Ice Beam. She says she can control people through the dolls, just like she did with Red and Pika. She also warns them of attacking her, because if the ice dolls break, so will the real person. Green and Sabrina demand the cuffs be removed, but instead, Lorelei orders Cloyster to use Ice Beam. Trying to escape, Green and Sabrina fall since they try to go in different directions. Lorelei enjoys their arguing, which makes them easier to defeat. Green sends out her Nidorina, Nido, to use Double Kick, while Sabrina's Venomoth uses Sleep Powder, but Cloyster counters with Blizzard, stopping both attacks. Sleep Powder accidentally puts Nido to sleep. Lorelei then sends Jinx to attack with Thrash. Green and Sabrina dodge. Sabrina realizes Lorelei is focusing on Green, and Lorelei reveals that she captured Green's Horsey and dares her to come get it. Sabrina warns her it's a trap, but Green tries anyways. Jinx hits her, knocking Green out. Sabrina realizes she must get the ice dolls to stop Lorelei. She sends Venomoth, but Cloyster blocks it. On a second try, Venomoth uses Mega Drain on Cloyster. It's defeated. Lorelei grabs the dolls and is shocked. Looks like Lorelei's finally getting her revenge against Green. This should be interesting since, like the Agatha battle, the Dex holder is down, leaving only Sabrina to fight. She isn't letting that slow her down though, as she manages to take down Cloyster despite Green being out of commission. Lorelei clearly has more tricks up her sleeve, so hopefully Green wakes up soon to give us the proper team-up strategy between her and Sabrina. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Surge and Bill look for their opponent. Suddenly, they arrive at a strange cave. As they climb over the rocks, the ground starts to shake, and Bill falls into the water. He quickly realizes something is wrong with the water, and sends out Magikarp. Magikarp uses Splash, bouncing Bill back onto the rocks. Surge notices that Bill's shoes and pants are slightly melted. It's not water, but acid. One wrong step would be fatal. Suddenly, Bruno appears. He tells them that they must cross the lake to win, but they'll need to survive this extreme battlefield first. Looking closer, they realize the rocks are actually the body of a giant onyx. They assume it's Bruno's, but he says it's wild. Even he could fall. Bruno says facing danger makes a person stronger. Lieutenant Surge sends out Electabuzz and prepares to battle Bruno. Elsewhere, Pika begins acting strange. Blaine acts yellow for Red's Pokedex and activates the Pikachu emotion mode that lets you see how Pikachu is feeling. The readings are off the charts, apparently, even though, like, what's off the charts about that? Whatever. Yellow can sense Pika's close to remembering something, but he doesn't understand what. Blaine explains that through the Super Nerd, they learned that Red battled at Mount Moon. If Pika knew that, why didn't he return there? Blaine suggests that Pika didn't refuse to go, but instead he couldn't. He suspects memory loss from trauma. Pika's unhealed ear scar may be a hint at its emotional trauma. Suddenly, Yellow and Blaine spot Surge and Bill fighting Bruno. They try to help, but a barrier blocks them. Electabuzz and Vulpix attack, but Bruno dodges. Surge expects Bruno to use rock or ground types, but Bruno surprises them. He sends out Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Machamp. He proudly declares himself as the master of martial arts. The Bruno battle seems exciting. Fighting atop an Onix while deliberately giving himself a challenge is such a Bruno move. It emphasizes his respect for fairness and honor, setting him apart from the rest of the Elite Four. However, one issue I have with this chapter is the sudden amnesia direction with Pika. It contradicts earlier chapters when Pika clearly remembered fighting Bruno and even attempted to find Red on his own. This feels like an awkward retcon purely introduced to justify Yellow not going to Mount Moon, especially since we know that Red isn't even there anymore. Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee attack Vulpix and Electabuzz. Vulpix tries Flamethrower on Hitmonchan, but Hitmonlee pushes Electabuzz towards the edge. Electabuzz tries to fight back, but gets hit by Rolling Kick and Comet Punch. Both Vulpix and Electabuzz end up hanging off of Onix's body, right above the Acid Lake. Watching from the other side of the barrier, Blaine and Yellow see their allies in danger. They send Pika and Rapidash using Thunderbolts and Fire Spin to break the wall. Bruno senses someone trying to break through, but he says it will take too long and too much power to do so. He yells at Yellow and Blaine, telling them to leave. He doesn't want help or interference in this fight. Yellow and Blaine ignore him, and Blaine orders Rapidash to keep attacking. Angry, he says the battle must stay between him and the other two. Bill realizes the battlefield is like an arena. Others can watch, but not help. He wishes he could protect Electabuzz and Vulpix, but sees no weaknesses. Bruno sends out Machamp next. Lieutenant Surge, however, notices it's still wearing a Machoke belt, guessing it might have evolved recently. That gives him an idea. As Machamp attacks, Bill and Surge pretend to run and drop 2 Pokeballs. Electrode and Execute attack. Execute uses Egg Bomb and Electrode uses Self-Destruct. The blast hits Onix and throws Bruno off. As Surge and Bill fall too, Surge sends his Magneton to catch them. Bill looks down, unsure if Bruno survived the fall into the acid lake. This was a clever strategy from Lieutenant Surge. Just when it looked like they were finished, seeing them turn it around was epic. The detail about the Machoke and Machamp belt was interesting, though I will admit I wasn't entirely clear on how that tied into the strategy. I think the implication might have been that Machamp was inexperienced due to recently evolving, which could explain why it fell for the Pokeball trap, but the chapter didn't explicitly clarify Surge's thought process about that, so I don't know. Regardless, their comeback was great, and seeing Surge's electrical cage that was once used on Red return as a protective tactic was an awesome callback. At Cinnabar Island, the junior trainer cleans Blaine's lab and checks on the Super Nerd, who is still unconscious after weeks. He feeds the Super Nerd's Persian and Paris, then looks at the photo of Red's ice husk. He remembers the Super Nerd was the one who found Red. Suddenly, the Super Nerd wakes up. Confused, he realizes he's in the lab and sees a photo of Red's ice. He remembers being there when Red was still frozen. He tells the junior trainer that he had 2 men help him try to break the ice. They found part of Red's glove, which is what they used for his scent, and had Marowak use Bone Club to break the ice, but it didn't work. The junior trainer is shocked, but the Super Nerd shows more photos. The junior trainer notices something odd though, a strange shadow behind the ice in one of the photos. Meanwhile, in the stalactite maze, Blue and Koga continue forward. Agatha wakes up and praises Blue's skill, but says that they haven't truly won yet. We then flash back to see Professor Oak battling at the Indigo League. Afterward, he meets Agatha, who's upset that Oak left their research group. She sends out Gengar and Ghastly to battle him. Oak explains that he wants to create an encyclopedia to help people learn about Pokemon. Oak ends the battle, but they properly settle it in the championship finals of the Indigo League. They battled for 8 hours, and Oak barely won. Agatha, who's still bitter, now faces his grandson and Koga. The chapter ends with her Gengar rising from their shadows, ready to strike. I love this chapter because it finally fleshes out the Oak and Agatha history that was barely hinted at in the games. Seeing a younger Oak in action was great, and learning he left Agatha's research group to create the Pokédex added nice depth. The previous saga mentioned Oak was a former champion, but getting confirmation that Agatha was the finalist he defeated makes the history even deeper. Their battle likely meant much more than just a title, reflecting their clash of beliefs, and it's clear that's why Agatha carries so much resentment towards Oak. And sadly, it seems she's now directing it towards his grandson Blue. Blue carries Koga as they head towards the center of the island. Koga suspects they're walking in circles, and soon, they spot the Arbok tail that had been cut off. But Agatha is nowhere to be seen, and Koga feels weaker than normal. He realizes something is draining his energy. Blue turns and spots a Gengar in the shadows following them. Koga sends out Coughing and Blue sends out Golduck, but both are quickly defeated as Gengar vanishes again. Blue realizes that Gengar is hiding in their shadows. Blue sends out Ninetales, Scyther, and Charizard, and he commands a group attack on their shadows, but Gengar dodges everything and counters, knocking out Ninetales. Soon Charizard and Scyther are also defeated. Blue and Koga note that there's so many shadows around, so Gengar has too many places to hide. Because of this, they return their Pokemon. Blue sends out Porygon and orders it to use Conversion. When Gengar attacks, Porygon is unaffected. It is changed into a Ghost type. Wait, what? Aren't ghosts super effective against ghosts? What the, huh? Porygon uses Sharpen, and Blue tries to think of a way to lure Gengar into the open. Meanwhile, in Pewter City, Brock positions his Geodude to protect the museum. A Machop is able to grab a hold of him, however. In Celadon City, Shelder clamps onto Erica, trying to take something. Her Tangela uses Bind and Growth to fight back. In Cerulean City, Misty uses her Krabby to break free from the rubble. As she sees the Haunter and Gengar approaching, Erica contacts her. Now Viridian, Saffron, Vermilion, Fuchsia, and Cinnabar are under attack. Misty decides to send Starmie into the sky to leave a message to those at Cerise Island. Things are really picking up with the Elite Four's plans, especially Agatha, who continues to be ruthless. I love that Gengar finally took center stage, emphasizing her Ghost-type specialty exactly as I hoped. From forcing Blue and Koga into endless loops, to Gengar taking control of their shadows, the battle escalated dramatically. One minor nitpick though, why didn't Blue just fly away on Charizard instead of struggling to carry Koga? Oh, I know why, cause then we wouldn't have this fight right now. Meanwhile, the Elite Four are clearly aiming to gather all the gym badges, confirmed by Erica noticing the Pokemon trying to snatch something from her, as well as the Mars badge that was seen floating earlier. What they plan to do with them, however, still needs to be answered. Bill and Lieutenant Surge are still hanging on to the Magneton floating above the acid. Suddenly, Hitmonlee's leg wraps itself around Lieutenant Surge and pulls him down. Surge quickly has his Magneton grab him, however. Bruno then appears, revealing he survived by grabbing onto Hitmonlee, who used his stretchy limbs to keep them from falling into the acid. Hitmonlee attacks, knocking Lieutenant Surge loose and having him fall towards the acid below. Just then, a vine reaches out and grabs him in time. Lieutenant Surge's spoon of destiny starts to bend towards the vines. It's Red and Soar!
He's back!
Oh yeah, Red is finally back. He rides in on his bike across Onyx's body. Soar uses Sweet Scent to slow Hitmonlee and pulls Surge back safely. Surge thanks Red, and Bill is glad to see him again. On the other side of the wall, Yellow and Blaine watch the rescue. However, Red can't hear or see Yellow and Pika. Suddenly, the cave begins to collapse. Blaine realizes Electro's self-destruct earlier broke the wall between the caves, causing a flood. A strong wave crashes into them, knocking Yellow's straw hat and revealing his true identity. Yellow's actually a girl. Blaine is shocked, and they are both swept away into the darkness. Now that was an insane cliffhanger. I can finally stop referring to Yellow as a boy. Do you know how hard that was knowing Yellow's true identity all along? But yeah, for anyone who didn't know, this was a major reveal that will be explored in the upcoming chapters. The highlight of this chapter though is definitely Red's epic return. Perfectly timed and slightly justifying the awkward Pika amnesia plotline since there's no need to visit Mount Moon anymore. It's incredibly satisfying seeing Red again after so much buildup, and while Yellow and Pika haven't reunited with him just yet, his return definitely raises the stakes against the Elite Four. The final volume begins with the continuation of the attack on Kanto. A hunter spots Starmie flying around the air and throws a rock at it. Misty quickly has Krabby use Guillotine to smash the rock though. She realizes the attacking Pokemon are only going after cities with gyms. Erika also figures out that the Elite Four must be planning something. They're after the gym leaders' badges. Suddenly, both Misty and Erika are attacked, and their badges are stolen by the Pokemon. Misty tells Starmie to hurry and deliver the message to Cerise Island. Back on the island, Blaine wakes up and helps Yellow on her feet. Yellow is shocked to see that her hat is missing, and tells Blaine not to talk about it. She puts it back on, but notices Red's Pokedex and her sketchbook are gone. Blaine looks around and says they must have been swept into Cerise Island. He gives Yellow a riddle. What has one entrance and 3 exits? Yellow's answer? A sweater, which is correct. Blaine uses that riddle to compare their escape, stating the only way off of Cerise Island is by beating the Elite Four members. It gets darker, so Blaine sends out Growlithe to light a torch. As they move deeper, a voice mocks them, saying the cities are already gone and humanity will fall. Yellow uses Pika's flash to light the cave, and sees Lance has survived. Blaine attacks first, and tells Yellow to study Lance's fighting style. Lance says it doesn't matter how many opponents there are, and orders Aerodactyl to use Hyper Beam. But Blaine sends out Mewtwo, who blocks the attack. Lance smiles, and triggers a tremor that shoots them out of the cave. Aerodactyl uses Supersonic, but Mewtwo counters with Barrier. Yellow's insistent on helping, but Blaine continues to hold her back, wondering how long he can hold on as his arm starts to react to Mewtwo's power. The battle with Lance is off to an insane start now that Blaine finally unleashes Mewtwo. It seems like there's a time limit since his body is linked to Mewtwo, meaning Yellow will inevitably have to step up soon. Hopefully she's carefully observing Lance's skills to prepare herself. Meanwhile, as suspected, the Elite Four's plans revolve around the gym badges. With several badges now under their possession, it's only a matter of time before they can achieve their ultimate goal, whatever that may be. Mewtwo blocks Aerodactyl Supersonic. Suddenly, Yellow and Blaine begin floating. Mewtwo's using its psychic powers to lift them up and try to throw Lance off balance. Lance sends out 2 Dragonair, which summons storm clouds. The Dragonair use agility, sending strong winds towards Mewtwo. Yellow watches in awe, thinking the Dragonair look like storm gods. Blaine explains that the Dragonair can control the weather, showing how powerful they are. He tells Mewtwo to drop the barrier, and prepares to go on the offensive. The Dragonair attack again, but Mewtwo keeps Yellow safe. Then Mewtwo creates a tornado using Psywave, pulling the Dragonair into the vortex. The Dragonair wrap around each other though, to resist and form a circle, giving them a chance to strike back. Aerodactyl flies towards Mewtwo, and Lance hopes to win this in close combat. Mewtwo creates a psychic spoon weapon to fight back, but Blaine starts to feel pain. He explains to Yellow how his experimentation on Mewtwo caused their bodies to be linked. That's the only reason he's able to command Mewtwo. If they stay apart for too long, it puts stress on Mewtwo, and if they battle longer than 3 minutes, Blaine's body starts to degenerate. To finish the fight quickly, Blaine tells Mewtwo to attack Lance's Pokeballs. Yellow and Pika distract Lance, allowing Mewtwo to reshape the spoon into a fork, stretching it out, and destroying the buttons on Lance's Pokeballs. This was a really solid strategy from Blaine and Yellow. Seeing Mewtwo dominate the battlefield and counter everything Lance threw at it was awesome. But we also get a deeper understanding of the toll this connection takes on both Blaine and Mewtwo, introducing a clear limit that raises stakes. Their best shot at winning is clearly while Mewtwo is still active. And while it might seem like Lance just got nerfed, this is definitely just the beginning of the final battle. Mewtwo destroys Lance's Pokeballs, and they fall to the ground. Lance falls from the impact, while Blaine drops to his knees, and Mewtwo starts to weaken. Yellow cheers with Pika, thinking they've won, but Lance slowly stands up and laughs. He tosses away his torn cape and congratulates Blaine for being able to destroy his spare Pokeballs, but then reveals that they were all empty. Lance reveals that his other Pokemon have already been out the whole time. Just then, Dragonite and Gyarados burst from underground. Lance says that they were the ones who made the blast to knock Yellow and Blaine out of the cave. Mewtwo forms another Psychic Spoon and strikes, but Gyarados easily blocks the attack. Knowing Blaine's connection with Mewtwo, Lance asks if Mewtwo is willing to risk Blaine's life to keep fighting, as Blaine's body begins to suffer from the battle. Because of this, Mewtwo returns to the Master Ball. Yellow bravely decides to fight Lance herself. She sends out all of her Pokemon, and what is this squad? Lance looks at her team and laughs, and honestly, it makes sense. Yeah, I do the same, saying it's amusing, but warns that he won't go easy on her. He flies off on Dragonite. Yellow turns to look at Blaine, who's still passed out. Then her and her team race to face Lance, ready for the final battle. Just then, however, Lance begins healing his Pokemon, the same way Yellow can. Now this was an insane surprise twist. Not only does this imply that he shares a deep bond with his Pokemon, but he can heal them too. That instantly makes things way harder, especially with Blaine's plan falling apart. What I liked about this chapter is how it flips the usual dynamic of the Elite Four battles. Up until now, the gym leaders have taken the lead, but with Yellow stepping in, the Dex holders are finally front and center. As hyped as that is though, I'm not gonna lie, it's not looking so great for Yellow. Her team feels severely underdeveloped, and I'm still not convinced that she's ready for this. But hey, we'll see how this plays out. Lance reveals that like Yellow, he has the power to heal Pokemon and read their minds. Yellow tells Mewtwo that Lance can use this gift, just like her, but he chooses to use it for harm. She realizes Green sent her on this mission because she knew that Yellow would face someone like her. Yellow explains that in the Viridian Forest, sometimes a child is born with the powers to connect to nature. But even with these gifts, Yellow isn't sure if she's strong enough to fight Lance and his powerful dragons. Mewtwo encourages her, giving her the strength to go on. They arrive near the center of a volcano. Lance says that the tremors from Gyarados and Dragonite are pushing the volcano towards eruption. Dragonite uses strength to break rocks, causing lava to shoot out. Yellow gets hit, but Omni cools her down with Water Gun. The volcano erupts violently. Lance explains that while dragon Pokemon are hard to catch, they are extremely strong once trained. Yellow remembers how Blaine was training to dodge flaming attacks and how Blue practiced smashing boulders. Both were preparing for this very moment. She attacks, but Dragonite easily knocks back the majority of her team. Lance says that Dragonite's armor is too strong. Yellow shouts that she won't run, however, because if she fails, the cities will fall. Lance says that he will rebuild them all for Pokemon alone, however. Yellow argues that hurting others, even for a good goal, is wrong. She mentions how Red once told her to treat Pokemon with kindness. Lance yells and orders Dragonite to use Fire Blast, launching Yellow towards the lava. I'm so glad this chapter directly addresses some of the concerns I've had about Yellow going into this battle. It's clear she doesn't feel ready, and she admits it. I really like how she reflects on her insecurities, comparing herself to Lance's abilities and the way Blaine and Blue came fully prepared. But even with all that doubt, she pushes forward, and that's what makes her stand out. This battle is her chance to grow and prove herself, not just to others, but to herself too. Now we just have to hope that she can survive long enough to make that happen. At Cinnabar Island, the gym is attacked by Dragonair, with the junior trainer hoping that the trainers at Cerise Island can stop this threat. Meanwhile, Sabrina continues her battle against Lorelei using Psychic, but it doesn't affect Lorelai's Slowbro. Lorelei explains that Slowbro used amnesia, so it forgets its pain and keeps battling. She adds that Slowbro is clever. Its main body looks forward while its shell looks backwards, which is how it found Horsey. Lorelei mentions how alert Slowpoke becomes after being bitten on its tail, and then wonders what would happen if Shelder bites Slowpoke on the head. And hey, I think I know that guy. Jinx uses Lovely Kiss, leaving Venomoth and Alakazam confused. Sabrina and Green, who is still unconscious, are hanging off a cliff. Lorelei tells Sabrina that she could save herself by cutting Green's hand, but Sabrina says that she'll never betray a teammate, even if they were once enemies. Lorelei's amused and has Jinx use Pound to knock both of them off a cliff, but Green wakes up just in time and has Blasty use Water Gun. Lorelei's impressed by Green's cleverness, but asks why she helped Yellow in the first place. Green explains that after the Pokemon League, she searched for the bird Pokemon that once kidnapped her. Someone tipped her on the fact that Lance plans to control a giant flying Pokemon, leading her to suspect that the Elite Four are the culprits. They also told her to find a special trainer and a Pokemon born in Viridian Forest to stop Lance. While flying with Jiggly, she saw Pika being chased by Hitmonlee, and knew Red was in danger. She met Yellow and asked if she saw Pikachu. Yellow read Ratty's thoughts and said no, but Green saw her sketchbook with a drawing of Red, who once saved her 2 years ago. Green asked Yellow to help her find him, and trained her before sending her off on this mission, giving her a straw hat to hide her identity. And there it is, the origin of Yellow's involvement in this story. She's the same girl Red saved in Viridian Forest 2 years ago. Sure, it's extremely convenient that Green just so happened to find the exact person she needed for this mission, but at least it helps explain how everything came together. I also really like the subtle teases towards Generation 2 sprinkled throughout this chapter. Very nice foreshadowing for the next saga, and a cool way to bridge what's coming next. Green explains that she's been tracking Yellow's journey through her hat. Lorelei asks why she's sharing this now, and Green says it's part of her victory strut. She orders Cleffy to use Minimize, and sneaks in to steal the ice dolls, but Cleffy trips and the dolls break. Oh no, Green's arm comes off! Lorelei has won! But the arm is actually Ditto in disguise, and it wraps around Lorelei and Jinx. Green explains that she knew she'd need some trickery to win, so she hid her real arm under her jacket. Wait a minute, I gotta call this out. How did she know this exact scenario was gonna happen? They didn't even know which Elite Four member they were gonna fight. I'm calling complete crap on this one, but it's still a pretty sick swerve. Sabrina wakes up and scolds Green for not telling her about Ditto, and the two start arguing as they walk away. Meanwhile, Red continues his battle with Bruno. Bill warns that Bruno is still dangerous. Red tells Lieutenant Surge to let him handle it. Hitmonlee uses Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. Red escapes and sends out V the Eevee. Using the evolutionary stones of Vermilion City, V changes into Flareon and then Vaporeon to get the advantage. V and Polly face Hitmonchan and Machamp. Machamp removes its belt, which has been storing power all this time, and blasts them off the Onix. Polly is about to lose, but V uses Acid Armor to hide in a puddle. Red then changes V into Jolteon and defeats Machamp with Pin Missile. Pleased by the battle, Bruno admits he didn't care about Lance's plan and believes humans and Pokemon can become stronger together. With that, Bruno accepts defeat and leaves the battlefield. Now that was an epic comeback battle for Red. The standout moment was definitely his use of V, freely switching between evolutions mid-battle. That concept was already awesome when it was first introduced, but using the evolutionary stones as part of his strategy took it to a whole nother level. It really shows how fast Red can think on his feet, and it also builds up perfectly to him defeating Bruno and earning his respect. As for Green, of course she gets the win too, and in the most Green way possible. I still call Bull on Ditto being the other hand the whole time, but honestly, it's totally in character. Classic trickery and clever deception to gain the upper hand. That's just what Green does best. Bill falls onto Red. Lieutenant Surge has thrown him over. He reminds them that the deal was to face one Elite Four member, and with Bruno defeated, the alliance is over. Bill is annoyed, saying Surge isn't much of a hero. He spots a path and then follows it with Red. Along the way, they find Yellow's sketchbook and Red's Pokedex. Bill tells Red that while he was gone, a trainer named Yellow cared for Pika. Red grabs his bike and races off with Bill to find them. Bill asks how Red escaped the ice and got the evolutionary stones, and Red says someone helped him. Meanwhile, Erica and Misty see the enemy Pokemon throw away gym badges. Erica thinks they're tossing ones they already have. Misty then remembers the badge energy amplifier and wonders if the Elite Four are planning to do something similar. Back on the island, Blue gets hit by Gengar. He figures out Gengar moves in the shadows and reacts to sound. Koga's coughing spreads smoke as a signal. Gengar attacks again, fooled by the severed Arbok tail. Blue's Porygon then blasts Gengar with Psybeam to defeat it. Koga's impressed that Blue was able to decipher his plan. Gengar tries to attack again, but Golbat clears the shadows with Confuse Ray. Agatha's amused. She recalls how Oak once tricked her in battle too. Blue and Koga then notice the sky message from Misty Starmie. Agatha warns them that the war isn't over. The Elite Four only need one more badge. She then reveals they controlled Pokemon using special bands, just like she did with Bruno. She mocks that they were even able to capture Red, and then vanishes using Ghastly. And as dawn rises, his Pokedex lights up. Red is nearby. At the same time, Red explains to Bill how someone helped him, gave him the stones and a Spoon of Destiny to reach Cerise Island. His Pokedex also lights up, and Bill lets Red go ahead to catch up with Blue and Green. This chapter drops some major reveals. Finding out that Agatha has been manipulating Bruno using the power of the gym badges is wild. While Lance may be the leader of the Elite Four, this really elevates Agatha as just as big of a threat. She's the one who recruited Lorelei and has been controlling massive armies of Pokemon behind the scenes. Scary stuff. Thankfully though, Blue was able to take her down with Koga's help. His strategic mind was a huge asset, and it was super satisfying to see unexpected tricks like Arbok's tail pay off in the end. Lance tries to push Yellow into the lava, flying above her on Dragonite. Just in time, Pika saves Yellow using its substitute surfboard, and they ride across the lava using Surf. Lance flies in close and starts reading Pika's thoughts, learning that both Yellow and Pika are from Viridian Forest. Angry, Pika fires an attack, but Lance blocks it with a strong Hyper Beam. He then reveals that he also came from Viridian Forest and has the exact same power as Yellow, confirming her suspicions. Yellow tells Pika to use Thunderbolt, and Lance counters with another Hyper Beam. Impressed by Pika's strength, Lance admits that Yellow's a strong opponent, even for her age. Lance explains that he uses his Dragonair's powers in 4 ways: to travel through air and sea, reflect attacks, control weather, and fight. He says the third power is only used against strong foes, and now he'll go all out. Dragonite attacks with full force, overwhelming Yellow. She remembers Blaine's advice to study Mewtwo's battle and decides to copy its strategy. Instead of attacking, she runs into the lava. Yellow uses Pika's Surf to create a whirlpool of lava around Lance. She demands he surrenders and stop hurting people. Lance looks shocked, but he suddenly breaks free and flies through the lava on Dragonite. He crashes into Yellow and Pika, but they survive the collision. As they look around, Lance has disappeared, leaving them unsure if the battle is truly over. This battle just keeps getting more intense. The final confirmation that Lance is also from the Viridian Forest, like Yellow and Pika, adds a whole new layer of depth. It feels like a destined clash now, where only one Viridian trainer can come out on top. While Yellow may not have Red's experience, she's got the heart to keep pushing forward, and Pika makes up for her gap with sheer power. That balance really helps make the fight feel more believable. My favorite moment has to be the lava whirlpool, an epic callback to the Mewtwo battle. I had my doubts, but Yellow is seriously holding her own. Yellow thinks Lance couldn't have survived the fall into the lava, and knows she needs to leave to reunite with her Pokemon. She sees that her team dropped a thread for her, so she and Pika climb up. Pika spots something in the lava, but quickly follows Yellow. Lance does survive, however, with him and his Pokemon encased in a giant bubble. As the sun rises, the bubbles Lance unleashes to attack vanish and strike Yellow. Her arm is broken, and Kitty quickly uses String Shot to make a cast. Her Pokemon are then knocked back by invisible bubble attacks. Lance's Dragonair and Gyarados are using Bubble, and due to the sunlight, the bubbles are now invisible. The red, green, and blue light mix into white, making them hard to see, cause, you know, science. Yellow jumps on a rock, and Kitty spreads String Shot around them. Yellow tells her team that they must work together and not fight one at a time. As Dragonair and Gyarados attack, Ratty ties a string to its whisker. When it shakes, it signals Pika to attack, and the electricity is conducted thanks to Omni soaking the threads. Meanwhile, Gravy launches Dodie into the air, and Dodie uses Drill Peck on Lance, but it's not strong enough to burst Lance's bubble. Lance admits that the thread trap slowed him down, but Yellow still doesn't have the strength to beat him. As Lance prepares his finishing attack, someone jumps in and saves Yellow at the last second. She thanks him, but says only someone from Viridian can defeat Lance. The man replies that he is also from the Viridian Forest. It's Giovanni. Man, what a surprise. We've been getting hints about Team Rocket's return all saga long, so Giovanni showing up now feels perfectly timed. And honestly, since it's going to take a Viridian trainer to defeat Lance, who better than the former Viridian City gym leader to take a shot? At this point, Lance feels unstoppable. He always has a clever trick up his sleeve, as seen in this chapter. And while I really respect Yellow's counter strategy, it showed just how well she understands her Pokemon's abilities, she's simply not strong enough yet. Maybe Giovanni's exactly what's needed to finally overpower Lance. Yellow and Lance stare as Giovanni steps forward to battle. Pika growls, and Yellow reads Pika's thoughts, seeing memories of his battle with Giovanni. Yellow wonders, can this man be trusted, or is he an enemy? Giovanni taunts Lance, who responds with Bubble Beam. Giovanni recognizes Lance's trick, and sends Rhyhorn to use Horn Attack and Stomp, kicking up sand and revealing the bubbles in the air. Lance grows angry, while Giovanni's Nidoqueen slashes through more bubbles. She tries to break the largest one, but it's too strong. Lance's Dragonite unleashes a Hyper Beam, blasting the area. Giovanni drops a Pokeball just before the attack hits him. As the dust settles, the ball opens under Lance and Beedrill appears, using Twin Needle to strike. The attack is able to burst the giant bubble, and Lance is pinned down. Lance realizes Giovanni is the gym leader of Viridian City. Yellow remembers hearing that Giovanni was unbeatable, but wonders why he's here. Giovanni explains that though he uses ground types, this Beedrill evolved in the Viridian Forest, and is perfect for this moment. Beedrill hovers over Lance, its stinger against his neck. Yellow begs Giovanni to stop, but he ignores her. He tells Lance that Team Rocket is not gone. They will rise again. Lance smiles, pleased to face a worthy rival, even if it's Giovanni of Team Rocket. Yellow is stunned. This man, born in the same forest as her, uses his power to spread darkness. Giovanni tells Lance to give up, but Lance only grins as a strange presence begins to arrive at Cerise Island. Now, no matter what happens next, I gotta give it to Giovanni. He truly showed Yellow what battling at the highest level looks like. The strategy Yellow struggled with last chapter, Giovanni counters it effortlessly and basically dominates the fight. It's a strong reminder of how much of a threat he was back in his battle with Red. This man does not mess around. Finishing things off with his Viridian Forest Beedrill was such a perfect touch, making this feel like a true clash between Viridian's best. What makes this even more interesting is the reveal to Yellow that Giovanni is the boss of Team Rocket, the very group that exploited her forest. So while he may be powerful enough to defeat Lance, his past and motivations might be the exact reason why he shouldn't. Giovanni's caught off guard when his Earth badge suddenly begins to glow. A burst of energy erupts, shooting high into the sky. Lance reveals that the Elite Four had been collecting all of the gym badges to harness their combined power. He explains that Cerise Island is actually a giant's badge energy amplifier. With Giovanni's arrival, the final piece of the formation was complete, unleashing energy that will reach the legendary Pokemon above the island. Meanwhile, Sabrina senses that Agatha and Bruno have been defeated. She leaves, ending her alliance with Green. Green sighs that she didn't get to use all of her Pokemon, including her secret ace, Snubbull. She then notices the legendary and quickly chases after it. Back at the volcano, Giovanni realizes he can't stop Lance's plan, so he straight up dips. Wow, I was not expecting that from the great Giovanni. That was kinda funny. Lance reveals his final plan to Yellow, to control the legendary Pokemon and use it to destroy Kanto. Yellow begs to stop, but Lance takes off on Aerodactyl, leaving his Dragonite to block Yellow. Yellow begs Dragonite to move, but she notices it's badly hurt. Dragonite hid its wounds after protecting Lance from the lava. Yellow reads its thoughts and sees its loyalty to Lance's dream. But Yellow believes people and Pokemon can live together, and she asks her Pokemon to help her prove it. When Yellow reaches the legendary Pokemon, Lance attacks. Kitty evolves into Metapod though, shielding Yellow. Knowing she can't cancel evolutions without Red's Pokedex anymore, Yellow calls on her team. Dodie, Omni, and Gravy evolve, with even Kitty immediately becoming a Butterfree as well, carrying Yellow as she charges into her final battle with Lance. Now this is what I'm talking about. Yellow's entire team evolving at once is such a powerful moment, and it totally makes sense since she can no longer stop their evolutions. What really stood out in this chapter though, was a reveal through Dragonite that Lance's Pokemon genuinely believe in his cause, showing this isn't just a simple battle between good and evil, it's way more nuanced. Lance is misguided, but he truly thinks what he's doing is best for Pokemon. And I love how Yellow stands firm in her belief that humans and Pokemon can coexist. Her bond with her team, and the evolutions that came from it, proves exactly that. Yellow and Lance seem evenly matched, as each Pokemon counters one another with devastating blows. Lance gloats that soon, he will command the legendary Pokemon to destroy humanity. As Yellow's cast begins to unravel, Pika charges at Lance, but is deflected. Suddenly, Pika's lost memories return, showing Yellow Red's battle with the Elite Four, helping her realize the only way to stop the energy is by using a much greater power. Well, that's convenient. Back in the cave, Red, Blue, and Green reunite. Red sees the thread from Yellow's cast, and Blaine reveals they're battling Lance. Red, Blue, and Green command their starter Pokemon to send their energy up the thread. Feeling their power, Yellow orders Pika to unleash it in one massive attack, Megavolt. A huge blast strikes Lance and the legendary Pokemon, and in true anime fashion, before Lance bites the dust, he has a quick flashback to his childhood. Why didn't we get this motivation for his character earlier instead of just one measly page in the very last chapter? I honestly couldn't tell you. It's probably my one gripe with this chapter. Giovanni, watching from afar, realizes Yellow's Megavolt has changed the badge's destructive energy into healing energy, as plants begin to bloom. Sabrina and Lieutenant Surge reunite with Giovanni. He scolds them, however, for needing the help of children, and notes how Koga won't even show himself. He tells them Team Rocket is not ready to rise again, and orders them to return to their gyms. In the mainland, Misty, Erica, and Brock watch the Elite Four's armies collapse, and the land begins to heal. Yellow thanks the legendary Pokemon before fainting into Red's arms. Yellow dreams of searching for Pika, only to see him run to Red, his original trainer. The moment is bittersweet, as Yellow cherishes memories of Pika and her unevolved Pokemon. Later, Yellow wakes up, surprised to be surfing with Red and the others. Red says Lance and the legendary have vanished. They've won the battle. Bill asks Green if she'll tell Red that Yellow's a girl, but Green refuses, wanting Red to realize for himself. Red thanks Yellow for everything, and jokingly suggests they live together since Pika likes them so much, leaving Yellow flustered. The chapter ends with Green contacting her secret ally, Silver, saying the search for the mysterious Pokemon that once kidnapped her must continue, as we get a look at a brand new region. This was a really strong ending to the Yellow arc of the Pokemon Adventures manga. Ironically, even though it's longer than the Red, Blue, and Green saga, it feels like Yellow didn't gain a ton of experience, something that worried me going into the final battle. But to my surprise, she put up a great fight, mostly thanks to Pika. My favorite part was seeing all the protagonists lend their energy to power up Pika's Megavolt and finally stop Lance. The aftermath was beautiful too, restoring life to areas damaged by pollution and symbolically addressing the Elite Four's grievances with humanity. It's not a perfect solution, but it reinforces Yellow's core belief that people and Pokemon can coexist. Despite some flaws, I really enjoyed this arc and Yellow as a character. And with those final teases of what's to come, it's hard not to be excited for Gold and Silver.